Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference on how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Also, of course, this is hot takes, but I just want to say, last time we talked about how there would be YouTube comments would be what we're doing for the foreseeable future. We still have a couple of more tweets that we're going to be doing for this one, but after this hot takes video, the rest of them are going to be exclusively YouTube comments. So anytime there's a hot takes video, you need to do two things. You need to comment your hot take, and you need to like the ones that you want to see me react to. With that said, we're going to look at the top 2 comments from the most recent video, but the rest of them are going to be tweets. The Gilbert Arenas take that removing the European players from the NBA to get back high-intensity defense is the worst take in media history. He even doubled down on it, no comparison to good takes like I want a Udala. Ignoring that last half because that's a whole other can of worms. Just in regards to it being one of the worst takes, or the worst take in media history, I definitely think it's up there. I almost reacted to it, but it just didn't end up happening for a couple of days and it kind of became old news. Yeah, it's a terrible take. I don't think that European players are bringing back the defense. I also strongly disagree with the argument that the NBA added rules to allow European players to be more successful. I really don't think the league has much incentive to do anything like that. Regardless of, even if there was a degree of truth to it, I don't like the notion that we should kick European players out of the league just on a moral, ethical level, regardless of what it means for what the NBA product looks like. That was the real fucked up part about that take, is Gilbert's just talking about these people like they're not people. There is definitely a degree of xenophobia in there, to say the least. Giannis Antetokounmpo should be the MVP favorite. He is tied for the 2nd seed while being an all-defensive caliber defender and putting up his best statistical season. The Bucks without him would be horrendous, and Giannis has been carrying them on his shoulders for the entire year. He has developed into an elite playmaker and is the best all-around player in basketball right now. I don't know quite about best all-around player, but he's definitely certainly up there. He has had the best playmaking season of his career. He's had the best finishing and like overall efficiency season of his career. Probably not his best defense, but he's up there. I don't know about MVP favorite. I think he should be in the conversation more than he is. I will give you that for sure. I think a lot of it has just been that overall this season has been a relative disappointment for the Bucks. Even if their record is still quite good, they have not dominated the regular season to the degree that I think a lot of people thought that they could. This is a team that a couple of years ago, before they went into the bubble, was on pace to win like 70 fucking games. And now you have Damian Lillard next to Giannis, so the prospect of them winning at least 60 seemed achievable, and I don't think they're going to quite reach that threshold for sure. That said, yeah, I do think he should be more focused on in the conversation. I just don't know if I'd quite say front runner. Curry has surpassed Magic Johnson for years. The only thing that kept Magic and others 80s to 90s players conversation is for the love of storybook nostalgia stories told about old legends. Well, as you'll know from the upload a couple of days ago, fuck this take. I hate that argument a lot. Magic Johnson is one of the most talented basketball players of all time, regardless of generation, and you're not going to just say this era sucks, therefore this player is better. It's not going to work that simply. If you think Steph Curry is more talented and a better basketball player than Magic, I think that's a valid take. I don't think this is a valid reason why, though. The Brooklyn Nets may have the worst future in basketball. They have a player that isn't a one that they want to be a one, Mikal Bridges, an overpriced player that never plays, Ben Simmons, and no developing young talent that looks like it's going to take off to be a cornerstone. Yeah, I mean, Mikal, they're at an awful spot because they have no incentive to be bad because they don't have their picks. They don't have the talent to be good. They're also not really a free agent destination. I feel like Kevin Durant and Kyrie going there was an outlier situation that's really not going to be replicated again. Ironically, them going there was kind of saving them from the pit of hell that they put themselves in from the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade. But then they did the James Harden trade and then had to move Kevin Durant and everybody else. So then that became another pit of hell. And they're back in the pit of hell, and I just don't think they're going to get an easy way out this time. They probably do have the worst future in basketball. I agree with this take. Scottie Barnes is top 15, top 20 at worst. Scottie Barnes does have a really good all-around game, but I don't think it's quite quite good enough of an all-around game to make up for the fact that he's a 20 to 22 point per game scorer on mid to not very good efficiency. I think Scottie can be there in a couple of years, but I think you are jumping the gun here. Being a good shooter doesn't make you a good scorer, and being a good shot blocker doesn't make you a good defender. This is my way of saying that KD is not a great defender and Klay is not a good scorer. That's stupid. I think you're a good scorer if you can score a lot of points. If you, a basketball player, gets a basketball and then you put that in the hoop over and over again, you're good at scoring. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's exclusively layups, if it's exclusively jump shots. One way or the other, you're scoring a basketball. Do you want to say that Klay is not that well-rounded of a scorer? Sure. Still a good scorer, though. He objectively has multiple 20-point seasons on well above league average efficiency. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA many different years. It's with 3 moves in his arsenal, but it doesn't fucking matter. As we discussed in the Kevin Durant hater manifesto video. At the end of the day, what matters is you put the ball in the basket. It does not matter how many different ways of doing it you have as long as you are effectively doing it, and a peak Klay Thompson absolutely did that. Kevin Durant isn't that great of a shot blocker, so I don't even really understand what you're saying here. He's like a 1 block per game guy, which for being 7 feet tall is not that crazy. And he's not a great defender, but he's definitely a good one. Yeah, no, I disagree with this on both. I don't disagree with the original premise. I immediately disagree with the actual argument you were making about KD and Klay. That's wrong. Draymond Green is a better shooter than Larry Bird. Well, that is not true, but the reason this was brought up in the first place is that Draymond Green recently passed Larry Bird in all-time 3-point makes while doing so in I think 100 less games as well, which is funny. It's really funny and pretty good argument in my argument that I always make, which is that Larry Bird just does not belong in the top 10 or even top 20 3-point shooters conversation. Shooters is a different conversation, but at least just pure 3-point shooting, Larry Bird ain't one of them. Because you just do not get to be a top 10 3-point shooter of all time, and Draymond Green has made more threes than you. That's just fucking insane. But with that said, Larry Bird has a way higher career percentage. So no, he's not a better 3-point shooter, or shooter in general, especially because Lord knows Draymond has nothing on Larry Bird's mid-range game. The Thunder are second-round exits at best. The game slows down in the playoffs and gets more physical. It's also officiated differently to a degree. They're just too young and inexperienced. Give them a couple of years and get rid of Giddey for a vet. I do agree that Giddey is the weak link for OKC, but I honestly think he will gradually get cut out of the rotation as the playoffs go along. I don't think it'll take too long for that to happen the moment that they face real competition, which, given that they're in the Western Conference, could be almost immediately, depending. But with that said, a second-round exit, if it's a competitive series, wouldn't necessarily be that disappointing depending on what the matchup is. You got to remember we're in the Western Conference here, and they're going to face a big dog in the second round. So if they don't beat that big dog, it's understandable. You're right, they do not have experience. They don't necessarily know how to deal with that extra physicality, the game slowing down, or the officiating being different. But I also think it's far from a guarantee that OKC doesn't do super well in the playoffs. I really think it can go many different directions. The Timberwolves this year are the Jazz of recent memory. Good regular season that'll happen with Gobert, but not a threat to win it all. Yeah, I don't really hate that take. I think that's pretty fair. I think the Jazz were a B-tier contender during that stretch with Gobert and Mitchell for a while, and I consider the Timberwolves to be a B-tier contender. They're around the same seeding in the conference that they routinely would be, ultimately probably falling short because they don't have quite a superstar tier player, but a player who can elevate his game and get close to it. I will say the strong difference between the two, the Timberwolves have way better point of attack defenders than the Jazz did in a year of their entire tenure. It's not even close. And a big reason why the Jazz would consistently lose in the playoffs would be their point of attack defenders would get cooked. Rudy Gobert would have to step out of the paint, and then the whole defense fucking fell apart. And then routinely a bunch of people who don't know basketball were just blaming Rudy Gobert without any level of context to that. That's far less likely to happen in a series with the Timberwolves. I don't think it will be Rudy Gobert's fault or even to be blamed on him by people who aren't really paying attention. I don't think defense will be the downfall of the Timberwolves as it was for the Utah Jazz. I think it's going to be offense because their half-court offense is very mid. Cat might not be available for the playoffs, and he was a huge part of the reason it wasn't just bad. That's more of an issue than the problems that the Jazz had. But in terms of them just like filling a similar role in the NBA, I can get behind that. J.R. Smith was the third best Cavs player in the 2016 finals. I mean, yeah, that's probably true because Kevin Love was bad on offense and defense for all the series other than that one stop on Steph Curry. And J.R. Smith hit his damn threes, played respectable enough defense. I don't know, maybe there's an argument for some other big man actually having more of an impact, but I think J.R. Smith was probably the guy. MJ's best stat is him never losing 3 games in a row during the 90s. I mean, I think 6-0 in the finals is a little bit better than that. I think averaging 40 points per game in a final series is a little bit better than that. I think averaging 27, 8 and 8 and like 4 stocks on an MVP season is also a little bit better than that. But this is a cool stat for sure. It's definitely up there, but no, it's not his most impressive. Victor Wembanyama will lead the Spurs to an NBA championship by 2026. Okay, I started laughing because I read that wrong. I read it as Victor will lead the NBA in championships by 2026. Now it's like, that math is not mathing. He's going to win 12 titles in 2 years. By 2026, that really depends more on the Spurs than it does on Victor Wembanyama. I think Victor can absolutely be the best player, and I think Victor will be capable of being the second best or the best player on a championship team by his second season. So yeah, that's achievable for Victor. It's really just, will the Spurs put the pieces around him to allow that to happen? Probably not by 2026. Probably not. But who knows? Perhaps. Shea is a better defender this year than Marcus Smart in his DPOY season. I don't know, I'd say it's probably close. I do think that Shea's defense this year has been the most underrated aspect of his game just because people are focusing naturally on his scoring. But Shea is one of those rare players in the NBA these days who is really truly a two-way player. I don't know if he's quite as good as Marcus Smart, mostly because he just has to put so much energy into offense. I also do think that Marcus Smart's DPOY was fraudulent as hell, so even that's a metric that I think is overrated in itself. But yeah, SGA, very good defender, underappreciated in that regard. The Mavs need to fire Kidd even though it's later into the season. Yeah, I agree absolutely. I think Jason Kidd is literally the biggest problem with that team. I think that roster is actually pretty fucking solid. But Jason Kidd is one of the worst coaches in the entire league. When they hired him, I didn't get it. He had like 1 year where he was okay, but literally every time after that, he has actively been a detriment to his team, and they should fucking fire him. The Cavs will fumble in the first round. Well, that did happen last time. To be fair, they did get a Knicks matchup, and I'm not sure what their matchup would be right now, but I don't know. Again, it really just depends on that matchup. There are a couple of teams that I think could beat them in a series in the East, so it would depend on that. But I also think there are a couple of lower seeded teams that the Cavs would really have no issue dealing with. Yeah, it's just dependent entirely on the matchup. I do think that they should have a little bit more juice to them than they did this last time. I don't think this Cavs team would lose in 5 to the Knicks, that Knicks team, but yeah, sure, possibly. That's it. Yeah, right now they're facing the Orlando Magic in the first round. I think that they could beat the Magic. Depending on where Joel Embiid is, they could beat the Sixers. I think they can beat the Pacers, the Heat, or the Bulls. Maybe not the Heat. The Heat could get them. But yeah, that's it. Shout out to Nick for editing this video, and goodbye.